The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council was the heart of 1,000 worlds. It floated in the center of a vast station above the golden clouds of Arcanus Prime. Light from distant stars passed through its transparent walls, scattering into soft colors that reflected on the faces of every alien delegate seated around the circular chamber. The council had gathered for a single purpose: to decide the fate of Earth. For months, reports had come in from the human system. Battles fought, colonies lost, fleets broken, and yet there were whispers, small, stubborn whispers that humans still refused to surrender. At the center of the hall, a large holographic display flickered to life. It showed the blue planet Earth, half shrouded in smoke, its orbit filled with the remains of destroyed ships. Counselor Vareth of the Seraphon Dominion stood. His tall, thin frame gleamed with silver scales, and his golden eyes shone coldly. "Let the record show," he said, his voice echoing through the hall, "that the human species has once again rejected peace. Their world burns, and yet they resist. It is an insult to the wisdom of this council." The hall murmured with agreement. Some nodded. Others hissed in disapproval. From across the chamber, Counselor Terran of the Alanari Collective, an elegant being of crystalline light, spoke softly. "Perhaps we should try again. Their messages are filled with desperation. They may simply need more time to understand our offer." "Time?" Vareth turned sharply, his scaled tail flicking behind him. "We gave them time. We gave them a choice. They answered with defiance and fire. The humans are primitive, emotional, and reckless. If we allow this to continue, they will drag more worlds into chaos." The Chancellor, Irix of the Virile Dominion, sat in the high seat above them all. Her smooth, dark skin shimmered with faint blue light, and her large eyes studied the room carefully. "You speak of chaos, Vareth," she said calmly. "Yet it was this council that brought war to their system first." A silence fell. Everyone remembered how it began. Humanity had been expanding peacefully at first. Then a mining colony on the edge of the neutral zone discovered an ancient energy source. The council declared it sacred. Humanity refused to give it up. That disagreement became a blockade. The blockade became a battle, and now the battle had become a war. Vareth bowed his head slightly. "With respect, Chancellor, they forced our hand. They do not understand unity. They believe only in strength." "Perhaps," said Irix, "that is why they are still standing." Her words made several counselors shift uncomfortably in their seats. The humans had lost much, their fleets shattered, their cities wounded, but they had not surrendered. Even now, after weeks of bombardment and failed diplomacy, they continued to fight back with whatever they could find. Small ships, civilian vessels, even orbital mining rigs turned into makeshift weapons. It made no sense. The Council had more power, more technology, more numbers. By all logic, humanity should have fallen long ago, and yet they hadn't. A soft chime sounded, signaling a new arrival. The chamber doors opened and a group of data envoys entered, carrying fresh reports from the outer sectors. They bowed before the Chancellor and activated their tablets. "Latest intelligence from the Sol system," said the lead envoy, a gentle-voiced being from the Lyrian archives. "The humans have withdrawn most of their surviving ships to lunar orbit. Communication from Earth's surface remains limited, but resistance cells are active in several major cities. We estimate their remaining military strength at less than 5% of its original capacity." 5%, muttered Vareth, his lips curling. "Then it is over." But the envoy hesitated. "There is something else, Counselor." The room grew still. The envoy looked uneasy. "We intercepted a human transmission 3 days ago. It was spread across multiple frequencies, civilian, military, even medical channels. It seems to be a speech. We are still analyzing it, but—" He paused as if unsure whether to continue. "Play it," ordered Irix. The envoy nodded and pressed a command. A moment later, a voice echoed through the grand chamber, a human voice, filled with static and exhaustion, but also a kind of unshakable resolve. "This is Captain Mira Holt of the Earth Defense Fleet. If anyone is still listening anywhere in the colonies, know this. Humanity does not surrender. We are still here. We are still fighting. For every city that falls, another will rise. For every ship destroyed, another will take its place. They can take our worlds, but not our will. We are the children of Earth, and we do not yield." When the message ended, silence filled the council chamber once again. The Alinari delegates' crystal bodies shimmered faintly. That voice, they whispered. It sounds tired yet strong, Vareth hissed in irritation. Propaganda. The usual human arrogance. They would rather die than accept peace. Perhaps, said Eirik softly, but they speak with courage. Vareth turned sharply toward her. Courage without wisdom is suicide. The Chancellor leaned back in her seat, her expression unreadable. Or history, she murmured. For a long moment no one spoke. The hum of the station, the distant sounds of energy fields, and the faint hum of translation devices filled the air. Finally, Eirik rose. Her movement caused the chamber lights to dim slightly, a symbol that the next words would become official record. The Council of Galactic Nations, she declared, has heard the final report. The human resistance is broken in all but spirit. I propose that we accept their surrender at dawn, Galactic Standard Time. If no such surrender is received, we will proceed with full planetary control. One by one, the councillors placed their seals on the vote. Vareth's golden insignia appeared first, followed by the others, bright lights in the air marking their agreement. Only one seat remained dark. Eirik looked toward Councillor Terran of the Alinari Collective. You have not cast your vote. Terran hesitated. The crystalline being's voice was soft, almost musical. I cannot vote for peace built upon ashes, they said. We call ourselves civilized, yet we crush those who stand proud. If they surrender, it should be by choice, not by despair. Vareth scoffed. Do not speak of pride. They brought this on themselves. Terran turned their glowing gaze toward him. Perhaps. But I have seen many species fall. None have fought as fiercely as the humans. Even now, when they stand alone, they refuse to bow. That kind of spirit is rare. The Chancellor raised a hand. Enough, she said firmly. The matter is decided. The Council will transmit the final message to Earth within the hour. The meeting ended, but as the councillors began to leave, a sense of unease lingered in the air. Even Vareth, certain of victory, found himself glancing once more at the holographic image of Earth. The small, scarred world continued to spin silently in the void. For a brief second, he thought he saw a flicker of light near the moon, tiny, almost invisible. He dismissed it as static interference. But deep inside the system, beyond the range of the Council's sensors, something stirred. A faint hum. A low vibration, a signal awakening from the dark. It was the echo of engines, ancient, powerful, human. Meanwhile, far away on a hidden base beneath the frozen crust of Europa, Captain Mira Holt stood alone in front of a cracked control screen. Her reflection stared back at her, tired eyes, blood on her sleeve, but still standing. Her crew had begged her to rest, but she couldn't. The Council's fleet surrounded Earth. Billions waited below, unsure if hope still existed. Captain, said her lieutenant quietly, stepping into the room. The Council will demand surrender again soon. Mira nodded slowly. They always do, the lieutenant hesitated. And what will we tell them? Mira looked up. Her voice was quiet but steady. We tell them what humans always say when the stars think we'll give up. She turned back to the console, her fingers hovering over the transmit key. Then she pressed it. A new message began to spread, bouncing across the empty space between worlds, stronger than fear, brighter than defeat. To the Council of Galactic Nations, this is Captain Mira Holt of the Earth Defense Fleet. You may think we are broken. You may think we are finished. But humanity has always risen from the ashes. We will rise again. The signal raced toward Earth. It crossed the void, slipping past the Council's jammers, reaching every human ear that still listened. On the surface of Earth, a child in a darkened shelter looked up at the sky and smiled. On Mars, a miner paused his work and whispered the words aloud. On a drifting cargo ship near Saturn, a pilot clenched her fists and reignited her engines. Across the system, hearts began to beat faster. And though the Council believed the war was over, something powerful had begun to awaken. Hope. The cold light of Jupiter's moons fell across the shattered surface of the hidden base on Europa. Inside, every wall shook with the quiet hum of damaged machinery. The humans who had survived the last Council attack worked with quiet determination. Every voice was soft, every step careful, as if even the ice could hear them. Captain Mira Holt stood in the command room staring at the main screen. It flickered again and again, showing broken signals from Earth and the outer colonies. Most of the screens were dark. A few still glowed faintly, showing moving lights in orbit, small ships holding position. Lieutenant Rafi entered, holding a report tablet. His face was pale under the dim lights, but his eyes still held that spark of belief that Mira had seen many times before. "Ma'am," he said, "we've decoded the Council's latest message. It's a demand for unconditional surrender. They say if Earth doesn't respond within 24 hours, they'll begin planetary occupation." Mira didn't answer at first. Her gaze stayed on the screen. "Do they think occupation will scare us into surrendering?" Rafi hesitated. "They think we've lost everything." Mira sighed, her voice calm but heavy. "They're not wrong about one thing. We have lost much, but losing everything is not the same as losing hope." She walked to the main control panel and touched the glass. A hologram of Earth appeared, scarred, surrounded by debris but still blue and alive beneath the clouds. "Rafi," she said quietly, "how many ships do we have left?" He scrolled through the data. 17 that can fly, maybe 4 that can fight. The rest are barely holding together." Mira nodded slowly. "And our people? Scattered. Some on the moon bases, some hiding near Mars. We've lost contact with most of them." Silence filled the room for a moment. The faint sound of wind echoed through the broken tunnels outside. Then Mira straightened her shoulders. "Get the engineers ready. I want the Resolute flight ready within 6 hours." Rafi looked up in surprise. "Captain, the Resolute hasn't flown since the Battle of Io. Half its systems are offline." "Then bring them back online," Mira said firmly. "If we can't fight them with numbers, we'll fight them with courage." Rafi nodded and left to give the orders. Outside, in the hangar carved deep into the ice, men and women worked by the faint light of portable lamps. The Resolute rested in the center, a massive ship once built to defend Earth's orbit. Its hull was cracked and patched with different metals, its engines barely operational, but it still stood like a sleeping giant. The humans worked in silence. Some welded damaged panels, others refueled small fighters or carried crates of supplies. Their faces were tired but focused. Among them was engineer Tessa Lynn, a young woman with oil stains on her hands. She looked at the Resolute as if it were alive. "You've seen everything, haven't you?" she whispered. "Don't give up on us now." When she saw Captain Mira walking toward the ship, she straightened quickly. "Captain, we're doing what we can, but—" Mira raised a hand gently. "I know, Tessa. You've done more than anyone could ask. I just need this ship to fly one more time." Tessa smiled faintly. "Then she'll fly, ma'am. Even if we have to push her through space ourselves." Mira smiled back just for a moment. "Good. Because soon we'll send a message the whole galaxy will hear." Hours later, in the command deck of the Resolute, the crew gathered. Most of them had served together since the first days of the war. They were no longer just officers or engineers. They were family. The lights flickered on. Consoles came to life, humming weakly but working. "Engines online," said Tessa from the engineering bay. "Stabilizers holding. We've got power." Mira took her seat at the center console. She looked around at her crew, faces full of exhaustion and quiet determination. "Everyone," she said, "I know we've all lost people we love. I know we've all seen things we never wanted to see. But the Council is wrong about us. They think we're finished. They think humanity is just a broken story ready to end." She paused, her eyes sweeping across the room. "But stories don't end like this." "Not ours," she nodded to Rafi. "Prepare transmission frequency. Wide range, every open channel, every frequency, every satellite." He tapped the console. "Ready, Captain?" Mira leaned forward. "Then it's time." The recording light glowed red. Her voice was calm, steady, and full of quiet strength. "This is Captain Mira Holt of the Earth Defense Fleet. To the Galactic Council and to anyone still listening across the stars, humanity stands. We have been beaten, burned, and broken, but we are still here. You can destroy our cities, but not our courage. You can silence our signals, but not our voices. We were born in the dark, and we learned to build our own light." She looked around at her crew and continued. "If you are human and you can hear me, wherever you are, do not give up. Help your neighbor. Protect your people. Rebuild what they destroy. Because as long as one of us remains, Earth lives. And one day we will come home." She ended the transmission. The message began to travel, First through the local relay, then through old satellites and communication towers long thought dead. The word spread through space like a heartbeat, carrying hope from one distant outpost to another. When the lights dimmed again, the command room was silent. Rafi looked at her. "Do you think anyone will hear it?" Mira smiled faintly. "They'll hear it. And even if they don't, they'll feel it." 2 days later, in a small shelter beneath the ruins of New Delhi, an old radio crackled to life. A group of survivors huddled around it, their faces thin and tired. The sound was broken by static, but the voice that came through was clear enough to understand. "We are still here. We will come home." A young boy looked up at his mother. "Mom, is that real?" She smiled weakly, tears in her eyes. "Yes, sweetheart. That's our people." Across Mars, miners gathered in the tunnels, listening to the same message replaying on loop. One of them, a man named Dalen, clenched his fists. "They think Earth is finished," he said quietly. "Let's show them it isn't." And on a drifting cargo ship near Neptune, a lone pilot named Sarah adjusted her broken radio. The message came through just once before the static swallowed it again. She leaned back in her chair, a small smile forming on her face. "Still fighting, huh, Captain Holt?" she whispered. "Then so am I." In the Grand Council chamber on Arcanis Prime, the reaction was very different. Councillor Vareth slammed his clawed hand against the table. "This is unacceptable." How did this message reach beyond the blockade? An aide bowed nervously. "It appears the humans used old satellite channels, ones we did not think were operational," Vareth hissed. "Destroy them. All of them." Chancellor Irix watched the replay of Mira's speech on the main screen. The image flickered, but the emotion in the human's eyes was unmistakable. "She doesn't speak like a soldier," Irix murmured. "She speaks like a leader." Vareth turned sharply. "A leader of a dying race. We will crush this rebellion before it spreads." But the Chancellor didn't respond. She stared at the screen a moment longer, then spoke softly. "Do you ever wonder, Vareth, what we would do if the positions were reversed? If we were the ones surrounded, standing alone?" Vareth scowled. "We would surrender. We would survive. That is what civilized species do." Irix smiled faintly. "Then perhaps humanity is more civilized than we are." Back on Europa, Captain Mira stood by the viewport looking out into the stars. The Resolute floated in silence, surrounded by the icy glow of Jupiter's light. Rafi approached quietly. "Captain, the Council knows we sent the transmission." "I know," Mira said calmly. "They'll come for us." "I know that too." He hesitated, then asked, "So what do we do now?" Mira turned to him. There was no fear in her eyes, only quiet determination. "We do what humans have always done, Rafi. We survive. We adapt. And when the time comes, we rise." She looked out the window again. Far away, small signals began to appear on the radar. Tiny human ships, ones they hadn't seen in weeks, were turning toward them. The message had been heard, and it was being answered. From the depths of darkness, humanity had spoken again. The Council thought the humans were finished. But now the stars carried a new sound, a heartbeat of a species that refused to surrender. The message from Captain Mira Holt crossed the stars like a quiet flame. It reached places the Council never thought to look. It slipped through broken satellites, ancient communication beacons, and forgotten outposts. Everywhere it went, it lit a small spark. The people of Earth and the colonies began to stir. The miners of Ceres far from the sun, deep in the cold belt of asteroids, the miners of Ceres worked under silence. They had no soldiers, no weapons, only machines that tore rock from the void. When Mira's message reached them, they gathered in the main docking bay. The screen on the wall was old and scratched, but her voice came through clearly. "You can destroy our cities, but not our courage." The miners stood in silence after the message ended. The hum of machines was the only sound. Then an old man named Dalen, who had worked those tunnels for 30 years, took off his helmet and looked around. "She's right," he said simply. "We've been hiding long enough. The Council thinks we're done. Let's show them we're not." A younger worker frowned. "With what?" "We have no ships, Dalen, no guns." Dalen smiled slowly. "We've got drills, engines, and hands that know how to build." That night, the mining bays came alive with sound. Sparks flew as men and women welded scrap metal into armor. Cargo haulers were turned into makeshift gunships. The miners painted the symbol of Earth on their ships, a blue circle with white clouds, and beside it, one word, hope. The spark had caught flame. The colonists on Mars. The red sands were quiet under the pale sunlight. The domes of the colonies stood half-broken, damaged by years of war and neglect. Most of the colonists believed Earth was gone. But when Mira's voice reached them through the static of an old radio tower, everything changed. A young woman named Lena worked as a technician, repairing solar panels outside the main settlement. When she heard the message, she froze in place. Her breath caught as she listened. "If you are human and you can hear me wherever you are, do not give up." She ran back to the dome, shouting, "Turn up the signal." "Everyone listen!" Within minutes, people began gathering in the square. Farmers, engineers, teachers, hundreds of them. They stood in silence as the transmission played again. Some cried quietly. Others simply smiled for the first time in years. When the message ended, Lena climbed onto a broken wall. "You heard her," she shouted. "The fleet still fights. Earth still stands. We don't have to hide anymore," a man from the crowd called out. "What can we do, Lena? We're colonists, not soldiers." Lena looked around at the half-ruined machines and the red horizon stretching endlessly. "Then we'll become soldiers," she said softly. "For Earth. For each other." By evening, the colonists began gathering materials. Metal scraps, broken drones, old cargo ships. They worked together, fixing, repairing, creating. For the first time in years, laughter and music filled the air. Children painted blue circles on the domes. Mars, too, had caught fire. The ship near Neptune. Farther still, near the edge of the solar system, a lone cargo ship drifted between the shadows of frozen worlds. Its name was Aurora's Promise. The pilot, Sarah Wynne, sat in the cockpit watching the stars. She had been running supplies for the council once. But after what she had seen, the destruction, the control, she had deserted. When Mira's message reached her ship, the signal was weak and broken, but she heard every word. "You can silence our signals, but not our voices." Sarah leaned back, closing her eyes. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she smiled faintly. "Still fighting, Captain Holt?" "Guess I should too." She powered up the ship's engines. They rumbled like thunder in the quiet void. The Aurora's Promise turned toward the inner system, heading for the moon bases. She opened her communication line and sent out a short, simple message across the old channels. "To any human ship still alive, I'm coming home." Somewhere in the darkness, other signals began to reply. "Copy that, Aurora's Promise. We're still here. Heading for lunar orbit." The spark was spreading faster now. Back on Europa, Captain, Mira Holt stood by the main console aboard the Resolute. The blue glow of Jupiter filled the command room through the thick glass panels. She had not slept in 2 days, but her eyes were bright with hope. Lieutenant Raffi entered quietly. "Captain," he said, handing her a datapad. "You need to see this." She took it and scanned the screen. Her lips parted slightly as she read the incoming reports. "Ceres has mobilized?" she asked. Raffi nodded. "Yes, ma'am. And Mars, too. They've begun building ships again. Civilian crews, volunteers." Mira exhaled slowly, almost in disbelief. "It worked," Raffi smiled. "Your message, it's everywhere now. Every colony, every outpost. Even some alien stations have been rebroadcasting it." Mira looked up from the screen, her heart swelling with emotion. "Then we're not alone anymore." She turned to the comms officer. "Send a message to all active human channels. Tell them this. The Earth fleet is reforming. Every ship, every pilot, every hand willing to fight for freedom. Come home." The officer nodded and began transmitting. Outside the ship, Europa's ice glowed faintly beneath the light of Jupiter. Somewhere deep below, water moved quietly. A reminder that even in the coldest places, life still endured. The Council's reaction on Arcanus Prime. The Galactic Council was in chaos. Holograms of dozens of alien representatives filled the chamber. Voices overlapped, sharp and nervous. Reports flooded in from across the system. "The humans are rebuilding," one shouted. "Ceres has armed ships," another cried. "Mars has refused the surrender order." Counselor Vareth slammed his fist against the table. "This is impossible." "They have no resources left." Chancellor Irix watched quietly from her high seat. She had known this would happen. Something in the human message had touched even her. Vareth turned to her angrily. "Chancellor, we must act now. If we do not crush them immediately, they will rise again." Irix's calm voice cut through the noise. Perhaps that is exactly what they are doing, counselor. Rising again. You cannot admire them. Vareth snapped. I do not admire war. Irix replied softly. But I understand strength. And right now humanity shows more strength than all of us combined. The council chamber fell silent. The chancellor rose to her feet. Send a message to our fleets near Earth, she commanded. Do not attack yet. Watch them. Let us see what humanity does next, Vareth hissed. You are making a mistake. Perhaps, Irix said. Or perhaps I am finally learning. The moon base awakens near Earth on the far side of the moon. An old military base came alive after years of silence. It had been abandoned long ago, hidden beneath layers of dust and stone. But when the signal from Europa arrived, its dormant systems flickered on one by one. Inside, a small group of engineers worked by flashlight. They had survived the first wave of the war by hiding underground. Now they had a mission again. Their leader, Commander Ryan Cross, stood before the central control terminal. His gray hair was tied back and his eyes were filled with a new fire. He activated the old display. A hologram of Earth appeared, surrounded by tiny red dots. Council ships. They think we're weak, he said quietly. They think we'll kneel. He turned to his team. Let's show them what Earth remembers. The base's power systems roared to life. Deep within the moon, ancient hangars opened, revealing rows of old fighters, rusted, dusty, but intact. One by one, the lights inside those ships began to glow. The rebirth of the fleet within days. Signals from across the solar system began to converge. Small cargo ships from Mars. Mining haulers from Ceres. Old defense crafts from the moon. Even personal shuttles that had once carried families now carried soldiers. They all came together near Jupiter, answering the same call. The Earth fleet is reforming. From her command deck aboard the Resolute, Captain Mira Holt watched the radar as more ships appeared. Dozens at first, then hundreds. Some were barely spaceworthy, but all bore the same emblem, a blue circle and white clouds. Her heart ached with pride. They came, she whispered. Rafi smiled beside her. They believed, Captain. You gave them that, Mira shook her head. No, humanity gave it to itself. I just reminded them who we are. Outside, the ships formed into position. It wasn't a perfect fleet, not yet, but it was alive. It was human. The first light, as the fleet began to move. Sunlight broke across the ships, reflecting off metal hulls patched together from 1,000 different worlds. For the first time since the war began, the humans didn't run. They didn't hide. They stood together. Across the radio, voices echoed, pilots checking in, engineers laughing, children crying as they saw Earth on their screens again. Mira looked at her crew and said softly, The council thought we would surrender. They thought we were finished. She smiled faintly. Let's show them what hope looks like. And as the Resolute turned its course toward the blue planet that had given them life, the human fleet followed. Engines burning bright against the dark, from Ceres to Mars, from Neptune to the moon. Every heart that still beat for Earth felt it, a single spark that had become a fire. Humanity was coming home. The stars above Earth glowed softly as dawn approached. For the first time in years, the sky over the planet was clear of smoke. The blue oceans shimmered beneath the sunlight, calm and beautiful. But orbiting high above that peaceful world was the largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen. Thousands of ships from the Galactic Council stood in perfect formation, surrounding the Earth like a shining wall of light. The armada stretched across the sky, silver, gold, and crystal vessels from every species in the known worlds. To the people below, they looked like stars that refused to move. The waiting sky inside the Council's flagship, Seraphon's Pride, Counselor Vareth stood before the massive window, watching the planet turn slowly below. His reflection glimmered in the glass, his golden eyes narrow. Prepare the message of surrender, he said to his aide. It is time the humans learned their place. The aide hesitated. Sir, reports say there has been unusual movement beyond Jupiter's orbit. Vareth turned sharply. Movement? Yes, Counselor. Small ships. Hundreds of them. Civilian signatures mostly, but the numbers are growing. Civilian ships? Vareth's tone turned cold. They are desperate refugees, nothing more. Focus on Earth. Once we take the planet, the rest will scatter. He turned back toward the window. Transmit the message to the surface. We will give them one last chance to surrender. The aide nodded and began the transmission. A signal spread across Earth's sky. Every screen, every radio, every communication tower came alive with the same image. Vareth, standing proud and calm, his scales reflecting the light of the council chamber. "People of Earth," he began, his voice echoing through cities and shelters alike. "Your time is over. Your fleets are gone. Your allies have abandoned you. The council offers peace in exchange for surrender. Lay down your weapons and you will be spared. Resist and your world will fall." The message ended. Silence followed, but far away. Beyond Jupiter's orbit, something was already moving. The gathering storm. The Resolute led the way. Her hull was old. Her engines burned unevenly, but she carried the spirit of Earth in every bolt and plate. Behind her, hundreds of ships followed. Miners, haulers, cargo transports, lunar fighters, Martian scouts, and countless small vessels held together by hope and courage. They were the reborn Earth fleet. In the command deck, Captain Mira Holt stood in front of the central screen. Her hands rested on the console, her eyes calm but bright with determination. "Status report," she said. Lieutenant Raffi checked his readings. "All ships holding formation, Captain. We've got more joining from the Mars route. Another 27 civilian crafts armed and ready. Communications? Linked, ma'am. Every ship can hear you." Mira took a deep breath and turned to the comms officer. "Patch me through." The red light blinked. Her voice spread across the fleet. "This is Captain Mira Holt of the Earth Defense Fleet. To all ships, to all humans, this is the moment we've waited for. The Council thinks Earth will kneel. They think we are broken, but we are not. We are one people, one home, one heart. We don't fight for power or conquest. We fight for the right to live free." She paused, looking out the viewport at the distant glow of Earth. "When you see our planet again, remember every life that built it, every dream that carried us here. Let them be your strength. Today we do not surrender. Today we rise." Cheers erupted across the communication channels. Voices from Mars, Ceres, and the Moon all shouted her name. The fleet began to move, slowly at first, then faster, engines burning bright as they entered acceleration. The humans were coming home. The Council's discovery on Seraphon's Pride, alarms blared. "Counselor," shouted the aide. Multiple signatures detected. "Sector 7 approaching fast." Vareth turned, his golden eyes widening. "Show me." The holographic display came to life. Hundreds, no, thousands of small ships were approaching from the dark side of Jupiter, heading directly toward Earth's orbit. "Impossible," Vareth whispered. "Where did they come from?" The aide's voice shook. "They carry human identification codes, sir. Civilian, military, mixed fleets. They're forming a battle line." Vareth's hands clenched. "Contact Chancellor Irix at once." Moments later, the Chancellor's hologram appeared on the command bridge. Her calm eyes studied the readings. "So," she said quietly, "the humans return." Vareth growled. "Give me permission to engage. We can end this before they reach orbit." Irix tilted her head slightly. "And what if we are witnessing history, Vareth? What if they are not coming to die, but to live? They are defying the Council." He snapped. The Chancellor's expression didn't change. "Then let them come." The Earth fleet arrives. The blackness of space lit up with streaks of silver light as the Earth fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the Moon. For a moment, all was silent. Then the radios filled with voices, excited, awed, and full of emotion. "Look at her," someone whispered. "Earth, she's still beautiful." Even Mira paused as the planet appeared before them. Blue, white, and glowing beneath the sunlight. The clouds swirled gently, hiding the scars of war beneath their soft patterns. "Home," she whispered. Then she straightened. "Fleet, this is Captain Holt. Formation Theta 7. All units hold position behind the Resolute. Defensive shields up." The fleet adjusted, moving with surprising discipline for such a patchwork force. The Resolute took the front, flanked by Mars defense ships and mining haulers turned into war cruisers. Across the horizon, the Council's armada shone like a silver curtain. Two worlds stood face to face. The standoff for several long minutes, neither side moved. The silence of space stretched endlessly, heavy with tension. Inside the Resolute, the crew waited. Raffi looked at the radar screen. "They're not firing, Captain." "Neither are we," Mira replied. "Should we open communication?" She nodded. "Yes, let's see if the Council still wants to talk." Moments later, the image of Counselor Vareth appeared on the screen. His expression was one of disbelief and anger. "Captain Holt," he said, his voice tight, "I must admit your persistence is impressive. But this is pointless. You cannot win." Mira smiled faintly. "We're not here to win, Counselor. We're here to live." Vareth's eyes narrowed. "Then surrender, and I may spare your people." Mira's voice was calm but firm. "No, we don't surrender to fear. You defy the entire Galactic Council. We stand for what's right," she said simply. "If that means standing alone, then so be it." Before Vareth could reply, the communication cut off. Mira turned to her crew. "Hold steady. They'll make the next move." The Chancellor's choice on Arcanus Prime. Chancellor Irix watched the battle unfold through her command feeds. Around her, other council members argued, some demanding immediate attack, others calling for caution. She raised her hand for silence. "They have come with courage, not aggression," she said softly. "Look at their ships. They are not conquerors. They are survivors." "But, Chancellor," one counselor protested, "if we show weakness—" Irix turned her gaze on him. "Is mercy weakness? Or is it strength?" No one answered. She turned back to the holographic display. The human fleet held steady, refusing to fire, even as the Council's armada surrounded them. "They do not come to destroy us," she whispered. "They come to remind us what it means to fight for something worth saving." The light over Earth back in orbit, the Earth fleet began transmitting again, not weapons, but images. Screens across the galaxy filled with pictures of Earth's people rebuilding their homes, children planting trees, families working together in broken cities. Mira's voice carried through the stars once more. "We are not your enemies. We are your equals. We ask only for the right to stand among you, not beneath you." The word spread not just to the council ships, but to planets across the galaxy. Many who had feared humans before now saw them differently, not as threats, but as beings of unshakable will, on Seraphon's pride. Even some of the crew lowered their heads in silence. Vareth stared at the screen, torn between anger and confusion. "Why won't they fight?" he muttered. "Because," thought Chancellor Irix, watching from afar, "they already have." A new dawn at last. The Chancellor's voice echoed through every council ship. "This is Chancellor Irix of the Galactic Council. All fleets are ordered to stand down. There will be no attack on Earth." The words sent shockwaves through the armada. Vareth turned toward his crew, furious. "She cannot—" But it was too late. Across the fleet, weapons powered down, shields deactivated. The lights that once pointed toward Earth dimmed into silence. Inside the Resolute, Raffi gasped. "Captain, they're backing off." Mira's heart raced. "Are you sure?" "Yes, ma'am." "The entire council fleet, they're powering down." For a moment, no one spoke. Then cheers erupted across every human ship. Voices shouted, cried, and laughed over the comms. Mira smiled, her eyes glistening. "We did it," she whispered. "Earth is free." Home again, the blue planet filled the viewport as the Resolute descended toward orbit. The oceans glimmered, the continents glowed beneath soft light. Raffi looked over at his captain. "What now, ma'am?" Mira took a deep breath. "Now we rebuild together." The fleet followed her down, their shadows crossing the clouds like wings returning home. Below, on the surface of Earth, millions of people stepped outside for the first time without fear. They looked up at the sky and saw the ships, tiny lights moving gently across the dawn. A new sunrise touched the world, and with it, humanity rose once more, stronger, wiser, unbroken. The Council had thought they would surrender. The sun rose gently over Earth, spreading light across oceans and mountains. For the first time in many years, the light felt peaceful. The smoke had faded, the thunder of battle was gone, and the sky, once full of fire, was now calm and blue. From orbit, the Resolute watched over the planet like a guardian. Her hull was scarred, her systems tired, but she stood proud. Inside, her crew moved quietly, repairing what they could, resting when they must. Every heart on that ship carried the same thought. They had done it. A message of peace. Captain Mira Holt stood before the main viewport. The blue curve of Earth glowed below her, and she smiled softly. "Has the Council sent any new communication?" she asked. Lieutenant Raffi shook his head. "Not yet, Captain, but—" The Chancellor's office requested a diplomatic channel. "They want to talk," Mira nodded. "Patch them through." Moments later, the hologram of Chancellor Irix appeared, shimmering faintly above the console. Her expression was calm, almost warm. "Captain Holt," she said, her voice measured. "On behalf of the Galactic Council, I wish to speak with you directly." Mira stood tall. "Go ahead, Chancellor." Irix inclined her head slightly. "What your people did today will be remembered. You faced an impossible force, yet you did not strike in hatred. You showed restraint, courage, and unity. The Council has seen this. And we have decided Earth will not be punished." Rafi's eyes widened. Mira's heart lifted. "Then this war is over?" she asked quietly. Irix nodded. "It is. From this day forward, humanity will be recognized as an independent member of the Galactic Alliance, with full rights and protection." Mira smiled faintly. "Thank you, Chancellor." But Irix raised a gentle hand. "Do not thank me, Captain. You and your people taught us something today. You reminded us that true strength does not come from domination, but from the will to protect what you love." The hologram flickered and disappeared, leaving silence behind. Rafi turned to Mira. "Captain, we did it. We actually did it." She looked out the viewport, eyes glistening. "No, Rafi. Humanity did it." The return to Earth a few hours later, the Resolute began her descent through the atmosphere. The sky burned golden around her as she fell through clouds. For years, Mira had dreamed of seeing Earth from this view again, not as a memory, but as home. Below, she saw the continents shining beneath sunlight. Cities lay in quiet ruin, but green patches of forest were already returning. Rivers gleamed, reflecting the morning light. "Beautiful," whispered one of the engineers. When the ship landed, hundreds of people gathered around the landing field. Families, soldiers, farmers, and children, all looking up at the massive ship that had carried their hope. As Mira stepped down the ramp, the crowd erupted in cheers. Many were crying. Others waved flags made from old cloth. "Captain Holt," shouted a young boy no older than 12. "Is it really over?" Mira knelt and smiled. "Yes," she said softly. "It's over now." The boy hugged her without warning, and she held him gently, closing her eyes. In that simple moment, all the fear and exhaustion melted away. The world awakens within days. The news spread across every continent. Earth was free. The Council had withdrawn their ships completely. Supply vessels now arrived peacefully, carrying food and medical equipment instead of weapons. The people of Earth began to rebuild, slowly, carefully, but with determination. Old cities came back to life. Broken satellites were repaired. Children went back to learning under the open sky. Everywhere there was movement, of hands building, of hearts healing. Mira walked through the streets of New Geneva, one of the first cities to be restored. Buildings stood half-complete, surrounded by scaffolding, but laughter filled the air. As she passed, people greeted her with smiles, some with tears. She had become a symbol, not of war, but of endurance. At a small park near the river, she stopped to watch children planting trees. Their teacher saw her and waved. They wanted to grow a new forest, the teacher explained, to replace what was lost. Mira smiled warmly. That's exactly how we start again. The Galactic Council's visit weeks later, the sky above Earth filled with light once more. But this time, not from warships. A delegation of peaceful vessels descended, carrying leaders and envoys from the Galactic Council. Their arrival was not met with fear, but curiosity. The landing site was built beside the United Nations complex in Old Geneva. The city, now glowing with fresh energy, welcomed them with open arms. Mira was invited to attend the first official meeting between humanity and the Council since the war's end. She wore her repaired captain's uniform, still bearing the scars of battle, but clean and proud. Inside the hall, banners of Earth hung beside the emblems of dozens of alien civilizations. The Chancellor herself was present, her luminous eyes kind as she approached. "Captain Holt," she said with a slight bow, "it is good to see you again." "And you, Chancellor," Mira replied. The Chancellor looked around at the hall filled with representatives from both sides. "This meeting marks a new beginning," she declared. "For too long our differences have divided us. Today we choose cooperation over fear." She turned toward Mira. "Would you speak for your people?" Mira hesitated, feeling every eye in the room on her. Then she stepped forward. "For centuries," she began, "humanity looked to the stars and wondered if we were alone. When we found we were not, we feared it meant we were small. But now we understand something greater. We don't need to be the strongest or the oldest race. We only need to remember what gives us strength. The love for our home, the courage to protect it, and the hope that carries us through the dark. Her voice grew softer. We do not seek to rule the galaxy. We only wish to be part of it, to share, to learn, and to live in peace. The hall fell silent. Then the Chancellor smiled and raised her hand in a gesture of respect. The entire chamber followed, applauding softly in their own ways, clapping hands, chiming crystals, and resonating tones. For the first time in history, Earth's flag was raised beside the banner of the Galactic Alliance. A letter from home that night. As the stars rose again, Mira sat alone by a window overlooking the lights of the city. A small message blinked on her communicator. It was from her mother, living in one of the newly rebuilt towns by the sea. My dear Mira, I watched your speech today. Everyone here did. You made us proud. Your father would have been proud too. When I look at the sky now, I don't see fear anymore. I see hope. Thank you for giving that back to us. Love, Mom. Mira smiled through her tears. The sound of laughter drifted from the streets below. People were celebrating, singing, dancing, rebuilding. For the first time in many years, humanity was not just surviving. It was living again. The promised months passed. The world continued to heal. Cities grew brighter, forests greener, oceans clearer. The scars of war were still there, but they no longer defined Earth. They reminded its people of how far they had come. The Earth fleet became part of a new alliance program, working side by side with alien engineers and explorers. Together they built new starships, ships of peace designed for exploration and aid, not battle. Mira oversaw the first of these new vessels. When it was completed, it gleamed silver and blue under the sunlight. Its name was simple but powerful, the Horizon. During the launch ceremony, Mira stood before her new crew, humans and aliens alike. The Horizon will not carry weapons, she said. It will carry hope. Wherever it goes, it will remind the galaxy of what we learned, the value of unity, courage, and peace. The engines hummed softly, ready for departure. As the ship lifted off, the crowd below waved and cheered. Mira looked out the viewport, watching Earth grow smaller beneath her once more. But this time she did not feel fear. She felt peace. The new dawn from orbit. The planet glowed like a jewel among the stars. The same council fleets that once threatened it now formed protective patrols around its skies, not as masters but as allies. The Chancellor's message was broadcast across the galaxy. The era of fear is over. The lesson of Earth is clear. Peace is not given by power but earned by understanding. And everywhere the story spread. Songs were written, monuments built, children taught about the day humanity stood unbroken before the stars. In every corner of the galaxy, beings spoke of the blue planet that would not bow, and the woman who carried its hope. Epilogue. Under the same stars years later, on a quiet night, Captain Mira Holt stood again on Earth's surface. The war was long past. The Council and humans had built a new academy near the mountains, where young explorers of all species studied together. Mira looked up at the sky. Countless stars blinked above her, each one a story, a promise, a dream waiting to be found. She smiled softly. The universe is big, she whispered, but the heart that dares to hope is bigger. The wind carried her words gently across the fields. Children laughed in the distance. The world was alive again, and above them the ships of Earth and the Alliance moved together through the dark, bright lights of unity shining against the endless night. Humanity had not only survived, it had become a beacon. The Council had thought they would surrender, but instead they rose higher than anyone had ever imagined.